The day had started like any other in the village, with the morning sun casting long shadows through the marketplace, where villagers bartered goods with cheerful banter. But peace was a fragile veil, and it shattered when the air filled with the thundering hooves of war horses and the clashing of steel. Akin was in the fields when the alarm gong bellowed through the air, a sound that turned his blood cold. Dropping his tools, he sprinted towards the village, his heart pounding in sync with his feet. As he approached, he saw them, a band of warriors led by a towering figure, their armor glinting under the sun. The leader, known as Akogun, was a legend whispered in fearful tones in the surrounding lands. He was a warrior corrupted by vengeance, seeking to dominate the lands that he believed had forsaken him. His strength, they said, was fueled by a dark spirit from the wilderness, giving him power that no mere man could contend with. Akogun stood in the center of the village square, his voice booming over the screams and chaos. "Bow to your new master or perish," he declared, swinging his massive sword to make his point. Akin arrived just in time to see a group of villagers cornered by Akogun's men. Without hesitation, he charged into the fray, his own battle cry slicing through the air. "Leave these people be!" Akin shouted, drawing Akogun's attention. The battle cry of the villagers quivered in the air as Akin faced the towering figure of Akogun in the village square. Known across the lands for his merciless raids, Akogun was a figure of dread, his power rumored to be fueled by dark spirits. As steel met steel, Akin quickly realized the grave disparity in their strengths. Akogun's blows were like the force of a storm, relentless and overpowering. With each clash, Akin was pushed back, his resolve hardening. Amidst the fray, Akin raised his hand to the sky, calling upon his birthright, the power of Sango, the god of thunder. The sky responded with an ominous rumble, dark clouds swirling above as they converged into a vortex. With a powerful gesture, Akin unleashed a series of thunderclaps, each striking Akogun with the precision of celestial wrath. Smoke and the scent of ozone filled the air, shrouding Akogun in a veil of darkness. The villagers, witnessing this spectacle, erupted in cheers, believing their protector had triumphed. "The Thunder King prevails," they shouted, their voices laced with relief and joy. But as the smoke began to clear, a silhouette emerged. Akogun walked out of the thick smoke, a sinister smile playing on his lips, unharmed by the divine assault. The crowd's cheers faltered, turning into gasps of disbelief. "This is too easy," Akogun declared, his voice echoing ominously across the square. "I will come back, and when I do, I want a fair battle, a challenging battle. I will return with more fire and my entourage to finish this whole village." With those chilling words, he mounted his horse and rode away into the gathering dusk. Akin stood amidst the stunned silence, his heart sinking. The confrontation had revealed a terrifying truth. He was fighting a force far greater than any he had faced before. The powers of thunder and rain, which had never failed him, were insufficient against this dark warrior. As night fell over the village, still reeling from the day's events, unable to sleep, Akin wandered to the corridor of their modest home, his gaze lingering over the village below. The night was quiet, too quiet, and in the distance, an ominous glow hinted at destruction. Akin knew it was Akogun, continuing his rampage through the neighboring communities. His heart ached at the thought of such chaos edging ever closer to his own people. As he stood there, lost in his dark reflections, he felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. He turned to find his wife, the princess, her eyes full of concern and love. "Akin, I know how heavy this burden weighs on you. You might feel powerless now, but perhaps there's wisdom we haven't sought yet." The great Ifa oracle might hold the key to overcoming Akogun. "You don't have to carry this burden alone," she whispered. Her words, sincere and comforting, cut through the fog of his despair. Akin nodded, his decision made by the unyielding spirit of his dear wife. "You're right. I've relied on my own strength for too long. It's time we seek wisdom from those who have watched over our lands for centuries," Akin replied. Meanwhile, within the palace walls, the king observed the rise of Akin's popularity with resentment. Though officially the ruler, he felt his influence waning, overshadowed by the feats and legend of Akin. The news of Akogun's devastating raids initially stirred a secret relief in him. A formidable threat might just distract the populace, or even better, eliminate Akin. The next evening, under the guise of discussing state matters, the king convened his council for a clandestine meeting. In the council chambers, usually a place of open debate and decision-making, a suffocating atmosphere took hold, as the king expressed his thoughts about leveraging Akogun's threat to their advantage. "We face not just a threat from Akogun, but an opportunity," the king began, his voice low and measured. "If this marauder is as powerful as they say, perhaps he can solve our problem with Akin." "You propose an alliance with this barbarian, my lord?" asked one of the council members, his tone laced with surprise and skepticism. "If Akogun can defeat Akin, he will have proven himself a formidable ally, or at least a manageable foe. Either way, we regain control," the king explained, his eyes scanning the room for reactions. "We will offer him riches beyond his imagination, lands and titles, whatever it takes." The council murmured among themselves, visibly torn. Some members looked uncomfortable, others intrigued by the possibility of restoring the royal family's full authority. "And if this Akogun turns his ambition towards us, my lord, what then?" another council member questioned, his worry evident in his furrowed brow. "We will have to prepare for that eventuality. But first, we must ensure he sees Akin as his primary adversary. We must secure our future," the king asserted, his voice firm, leaving no room for further debate. Amidst the discussions, the young prince, who is now grown into a thoughtful and observant young man, felt increasingly conflicted. The strategies discussed seemed to undermine the very principles of honor and duty he held dear. The prince, later, in the quiet of his chambers, pondered the path his father was choosing. Could he, the future king, sit back and watch as his father conspired with an enemy? Was there honor in victory at such a cost? Resolved to seek answers, the prince decided to leave the palace in secret the following morning. He needed to find Akin and witness firsthand the qualities that earned him the people's reverence, perhaps understanding what made a true leader. As dawn painted the sky with streaks of gold and crimson, the young prince slipped away from the confines of the palace, driven by a desire to uncover the essence of true leadership, a trait he feared was fading within the royal lineage. Clad in simple garments to avoid drawing attention, he mounted his swiftest horse and set off towards the village where Akin resides. The journey was a quiet one, giving the prince ample time to reflect on the stories he had heard about Akin. He thought of the protector's humility, bravery, and the unwavering dedication to the people, qualities that seemed to have earned him the unofficial title of the People's King. As the prince approached the village, he noticed the signs of distress that Akogun's raids had left on the neighboring lands. Burned fields, destroyed homes, and fearful faces were telltale signs of the marauder's passage. His heart grew heavier with each mile. The devastation was worse than he had imagined. Upon reaching the village, the prince discreetly inquired about Akin's whereabouts. The villagers spoke of him with a mixture of reverence and concern. Reverence for his past deeds, and concern for his current mission against the formidable Akogun. As the chill of the evening set in, Akin and the princess were startled by an unexpected visitor. The figure approaching through the shadows of twilight was none other than the young prince, his presence far from the safety and grandeur of the palace. Recognizing the prince, Akin and the princess quickly ushered him inside, curious about the urgency of his unannounced visit. "I have come with troubling news," the prince confessed once they were settled away from any prying ears. "Akogun is not just a marauder. My father is considering an alliance with him. He believes that if Akogun can defeat you, he can secure his rule without threat. You must be prepared." Akin listened, his expression growing solemn. The possibility of facing not only Akogun, but potentially an army was daunting. "Thank you, my prince," Akin responded gravely. "I will do all I can to protect my people, even if I must sacrifice my life doing so." "You are a great and noble warrior, Akin," the prince said admiringly. "One day I hope to be even half as brave and honorable as you." As the prince slipped away into the night as secretly as he had come, Akin turned to the princess, resolve hardening in his eyes. "We must seek the oracle's wisdom. There's more at stake now, and we need every advantage we can get." The journey to the oracle was fraught with the weight of impending conflict. Akin and the princess trekked through the dense forest, guided by the ancient markers known only to those who had ventured to seek the oracle's counsel before. Upon reaching the sacred grove, the oracle greeted them with a knowing look, as if aware of their troubles before a word was spoken. "You come seeking strength to face a darkness that threatens not just your home, but the balance of the natural world," the oracle intoned. "We need a way to overcome Akogun," Akin said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty that gnawed at him. "He wields power unlike anything I've faced." The oracle nodded, his eyes reflecting the flicker of the fire before him. "The staff of fire, once wielded by Sango himself, holds the essence of fire and storm. It is hidden in the ruins of light, guarded by the spirits of fire. Only one of true heart and bravery can claim it, and even then the spirits will test you." "Then I will face these spirits," Akin declared, his determination unwavering. "And I will bring back the staff of fire to defend our people." With the oracle's guidance etched in their minds, Akin and the princess prepared for the next phase of their journey, one that would take them into the depths of ancient ruins and through trials that would test their courage, their love, and their resolve to protect their home. With the oracle's forewarning echoing in their ears, Akin and the princess set off for the ruins of light. The journey was arduous, taking them through uncharted forests and across barren landscapes that tested their resolve at every turn. The oracle's words haunted them. "Only one of true heart and bravery can claim it, and even then, the spirits will test you." Meanwhile, back at the palace, the young prince confronted a grim reality. The council had secretly met with Akogun, who promised that Akin's life would end within 4 days. Horrified by the council's schemes and Akogun's bold threat, the prince knew he couldn't sit idly by while a noble man like Akin faced such peril. As the night enveloped the palace in its quietude, the prince couldn't shake off the disappointment and anger boiling within him. He confronted his father, the king, in the royal chambers, where the shadows of the evening seemed to darken with their conversation. "I am so disappointed, Dad. You are the king. You are meant to protect the people. Akin has done nothing but protect our people. How can you conspire against him? He is your son-in-law." "I never wished to become a king like you," the prince declared, his voice strained with emotion. "You know nothing, my son. This is all to protect you and secure your future," the king retorted, his voice echoing a mix of frustration and desperation. "I want no such future, and if this is what it means to rule, I don't ever want to be a king. I will stand by Akin, and if I die doing so, know that you murdered your own son." The prince stated resolutely, turning on his heel and stumbling out of the palace into the night. His father's calls faded into the background as he made his way back to Akin's village, only to learn of his journey to retrieve the Staff of Fire. Under the dense canopy of an ancient forest, the ruins of light stood as silent witnesses to centuries of history. The air was thick with the scent of moss and old stone. Akin and the princess approached the pedestal, where the Staff of Fire was said to rest, its location revealed only by the oracle's cryptic clues. The ruins were quiet, the only sounds the distant calls of forest creatures and the soft rustling of leaves. As they neared the pedestal, the air seemed to thrum with a latent energy, an anticipation of the impending trial. Akin paused before the staff, which was encased in an aura of pulsing light. The princess touched his arm gently, her face etched with concern. "Be careful, Akin. Remember, the oracle said only one of true heart and bravery can claim it. And even then, the spirits will test you." Nodding solemnly, Akin took a deep breath, steeling himself for what might come. He reached out slowly, his hand trembling slightly as it neared the ancient artifact. As his fingers brushed the staff, a jolt of electric energy surged through him, throwing him back with such force that he landed several feet away, his body smoking slightly from the shock. The princess rushed to his side, her voice filled with panic. "Akin! Are you all right?" Groaning, Akin pushed himself up on his elbows, his face contorted in pain. I'm not sure what happened. It's like the staff rejected me." Determined, he stood again, his jaw set stubbornly. "I have to try again. The village, our people, they're all counting on me." The princess bit her lip, her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, understanding the weight of his responsibility. Akin approached the staff again, chanting incantations in an ancient tongue, calling upon the divine power of Sango for strength. This time, as he touched the staff, an even more violent burst of electricity struck him, catapulting him against a nearby tree. As he lay crumpled on the ground, the princess ran to him, her voice breaking as she pleaded, "Please, my love, don't try again. It seems the staff doesn't want to respond to you. Let's go back home. We still have the Ose Sango." Tears streamed down Akin's cheeks as he looked up at her, the realization of defeat heavy in his eyes. "This was our last hope to defeat Akogun," he sobbed, his spirit breaking. "It means I'm not worthy enough to wield this great power. It's not meant for me." Helping him to his feet, the princess supported him as they made their way out of the ruins, both heavy-hearted and uncertain of the future. Returning to the village with the weight of failure pressing heavily on them, Akin and the princess faced their people, not with the triumphant news they had hoped to deliver, but with a resolve forged from the trials they had endured. The village was quiet, the usual evening bustle subdued, as the reality of the impending battle settled in. Akin gathered the villagers at the central square, standing before them with the Ose Sango in his hands, the only symbol of hope they had left. The warriors, farmers, and families of the village looked on, their faces a mixture of fear and determination. "People of our village," Akin began, his voice resonant and clear, cutting through the evening chill. "Today I attempted to claim the Staff of Fire, a symbol of ultimate protection and power. It rejected me, not once but twice, with a force that I have never before encountered." The crowd murmured, the disappointment palpable, but Akin raised his hand to quiet them. "However, we do not face the battle without hope. We have each other, and we have the Ose Sango, which has never failed us. We stand together, united in our determination to protect our homes and our lives." The princess stepped forward, her presence comforting. Akin has shown time and again that true leadership is about standing firm in the face of adversity. Tomorrow, we fight not just for survival, but for the future we believe in. Let us prepare, let us be strong, and let us show Akogun that we are not merely farmers, but warriors of spirit. As night fell, the villagers set about preparing for the battle. Barricades were erected, weapons were distributed, and strategies were discussed. Akin trained with the warriors, showing them how to maximize their skills with the weapons at hand. The princess, meanwhile, organized the evacuation of the non-combatants to the caves near the village, ensuring their safety should the battle spill into the streets. The night passed with many a restless heart, and the dawn broke with a grim promise. As the first light touched the horizon, the distant sounds of marching feet and clanking armor announced Akogun's approach. The village braced itself, the air tense with anticipation and fear. Akin stood at the forefront, the osesango in hand, its ancient metal gleaming in the new light. Beside him stood his warriors, a small but fierce band ready to face the overwhelming odds. As Akogun's forces appeared on the field before the village, their numbers far greater than the villagers, Akogun rode forward, a smirk on his cruel face. "These are the farmers we are fighting today. This shouldn't take us any time at all," he taunted, his voice loud and confident. But Akin stood unflinching, his voice booming across the field in response. "We are the people of this land, and we will fight for every inch of it. Come and see how farmers can fight." The battle began with a brutal charge from Akogun's forces. Akin met them head-on, the osesango unleashing arcs of lightning, cutting through the ranks of the attackers. Yet for every enemy felled, another seemed to take their place. Just as the situation grew dire, a new force appeared on the horizon. It was the king, leading a contingent of royal guards. "You promised me wealth to kill this coward, and now you join him. What is this?" Akogun roared in betrayal. "Because it is right to do so. As a king, I must protect my people," the king yelled back, his sword drawn as he charged into the fray. The battle intensified, the clashing of steel and cries of warriors filling the air. In the chaos, the king fought bravely, but was struck down by Akogun in a fierce duel. His last words were a plea for Akin to protect the prince and the kingdom. In the heat of the battle, as Akogun advanced through the melee with a brutal grace, his path led him directly to Akin. With a triumphant sneer, Akogun raised his sword, poised to strike a fatal blow. The air tensed, time seemed to slow, and a hush fell over the nearest fighters as all eyes turned to witness the fateful moment. Just then, a miraculous burst of fire swept across the field. A fierce wave of heat and light that blinded combatants and onlookers alike. From the heart of the flames, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the inferno, an aura of commanding power radiating from him. It was the prince, wielding the staff of fire, its ancient wood glowing with a fierce, unearthly light. The prince moved with determined speed, closing the distance between himself and Akin. As Akogun recovered from his surprise and turned to face this new threat, the prince reached Akin's side, helping him to stand. "Together, Akin!" the prince shouted over the roar of the flames and the clash of battle around them. "Let's end this tyranny!" With the prince now fighting at his side, Akin felt a surge of hope and strength. Together, they turned the tide, their combined forces, a blend of Akin's thunderous might and the prince's fiery fury, proving too much for Akogun and his disoriented soldiers. As the dust settled and the last of Akogun's forces were routed or surrendered, the villagers began to emerge from their hiding places, their expressions one of awe and relief. The prince, still clutching the staff of fire, gathered the villagers in the now quiet battlefield to share the tale of how destiny had led him to their salvation. My friends, the prince began, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd, still marveling at the turn of events. When I heard of the treachery planned against Akin, I could not stand idly by. I went to his home, only to find he had left for the oracle. I followed, hoping to lend my support. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the faces in the crowd. At the oracle's abode, I learned of his quest for the Staff of Fire. I traced his steps to the ruins, only to find neither Akin nor my sister, the princess. There in the clearing stood the Staff of Fire, unclaimed, as if waiting. When I reached out, it responded to me, accepted me as its bearer. It was as if it had chosen that moment, knowing its power was needed here, in this battle. The villagers listened, rapt as the prince recounted his journey, understanding now how fate had woven their lives together in the fabric of their community's lore. Akin, standing beside the prince, clapped a hand on his shoulder, his respect and gratitude evident. Today we fought not just with weapons, but with the heart and soul of our village. We owe our freedom to the courage of each person here, and to the prince, whose timely arrival and acceptance by the Staff of Fire turned the tide. The prince nodded humbly. My beloved friends and fellow defenders of our land, the prince began, his eyes sweeping across the faces of his people. The battle we fought together has not only saved our village, but has also illuminated the true essence of leadership. It has shown us that the heart of a king must first beat for his people. He turned to Akin, who stood tall and resolute beside him. Akin has shown us what it means to be a true king. His courage, wisdom, and unwavering dedication to our welfare are what our village needs to prosper. It is he who should lead us as our king. My father, before his death, promised him the crown, and I am here to fulfill that promise. The crowd erupted in cheers, their approval loud and clear. Akin, taken aback by the prince's words, felt a profound sense of duty swell within him. He looked around at the faces of his people, their hope and trust in him shining brightly in their eyes. Akin, Akin, Akin! The chants filled the air, a powerful affirmation of the prince's proposal. Feeling the weight of his new responsibility, Akin raised his hands, calling for silence. "Thank you, my friends, for your trust and your love," Akin said, his voice thick with emotion. "I am honored to accept the role of your king, not as a ruler above you, but as one among you, serving our land with all that I am. And I am equally honored to have the prince by my side, not just as a protector, but as my advisor and co-leader, as we forge a new path forward together." The princess joined them, her smile bright and supportive. "Together, we will build a kingdom rooted in the values we've fought for: justice, unity, and peace. Let this be a new era of prosperity, guided by leaders who truly serve." In a ceremony filled with tradition and joy, Akin was crowned king, with the prince at his side. The villagers celebrated late into the night, their spirits high with the promise of a bright future. Under the leadership of King Akin and his trusted prince, the village grew into a thriving kingdom, a beacon of hope and a testament to the power of true leadership. As the years passed, the bonds within the community only strengthened, and the kingdom became a symbol of what could be achieved when leaders put their people first. Akin and the prince, along with the princess, led with a blend of strength and compassion, forever remembered as the guardians of a golden age.